Welcome to the Onyx Report, a program that critically analyzes the experiences, histories, and perceptions of black males in American society across age, class, region, sexuality, and profession. I'm your host, Dr. THasan-Johnson, Associate Professor of Africana Studies at Fresno State, Black Male Studies Scholar, and Black Male Advocate. In the program, we examine current events and major issues using an empirically driven Black Masculinist theoretical lens, thus including such concepts as the black male dual economy, anti-black misandry, phallicism, the subordinate male target hypothesis, and the black dynarchy. Our goal is to remind people, including black men themselves, of black men's humanity. Join us every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific, either on YouTube or innerlightradio.com. All right, welcome back to the Onyx Report, people. Today is definitely going to be a little treat, an unexpected but happy treat, especially for me, because I get to interview a brother that I've recently come into contact with, and I've enjoyed a lot of his work. He posts on YouTube and Facebook, I think almost daily at this point, and I'm going to introduce him in a moment, and so you guys can get a chance to find out why I'm so excited and why I'm going to enjoy today. But as we do, before we jump into that, I want to touch on a couple of pieces of current events that I think are relevant, particularly to black men, so we can stay on track and stay on the same plane in terms of what we're doing. First and foremost, up on ESPN.com, there's an article posted today entitled, "In Lawsuit, NFL Player Says He Was Sexually Harassed, Assaulted During United Airlines Flight." The unnamed player is suing United Airlines, alleging he was sexually harassed, assaulted, and violated by a female passenger on a February flight from LA to Newark, New Jersey, and that the airline failed to properly respond to his complaints. He said, according to the lawsuit, the player and another passenger in the same row made 4 complaints to flight attendants that the woman was making unwanted sexual advances before she was moved to a different seat. The 2 men are suing United, the lawsuit says, because the airline refused to give them the name of the woman, the flight attendants, and potential witnesses, and because the airline failed to follow policies to respond to sexual harassment and assault on the February 10th flight. According to the suit, the men first alerted flight attendants that the woman was disruptive and belligerent and appeared to be intoxicated. They notified the flight attendants again when the woman made sexual advances toward the NFL player, massaging his knees and thighs. More than an hour into the flight, the woman's advances intensified, the men allege, and she allegedly grabbed and groped the player. Flight attendants again were notified. The woman continued her advances, the lawsuit says, pulling off the protective face mask the player was wearing and grabbing his genitals. At that point, the player jumped up from his seat and complained in front of the entire plane that the woman was touching him. The player went to the rear of the plane and again notified a flight attendant. That's when the woman was removed from the row, according to the lawsuit. They didn't name the player, but subsequent articles may, so you might want to keep your eye out for this. And this is very consistent with what many black masculinists have been talking about in terms of sexual harassment and assault, that black men in particular, this is not new to us. I mean, for the most part, we've been sexually objectified since slavery. So the idea of sexual harassment being limited to women and not focusing at all on black men, most particularly after the rise of Me Too, is highly problematic and dismissive. Next up, we have a sad report. WWE's Shad Gaspard drowned saving his son from riptide. This is an article you can find on Google pretty readily, but I looked at the one at Deadspin.com, where basically his body had washed up on shore in Venice Beach early Wednesday morning, I believe. They said he had caught a rip current last weekend while saving his 10-year-old son's life. He was 39 years old. The lifeguard on duty tried to deliver a buoy-like device to help bring the swimmer to shore. However, the waves were too strong and the boy couldn't secure it. So this is something to look into. As I've been saying, y'all know, for those of you who follow me on social media, I have a hashtag up that I've entitled hashtag Sacred Black Masculine. And basically, I'd like to highlight brothers who are doing what we don't get reported doing. And that is, in this case, something, a father would do, which is trying to save the life of his son. And he was successful in doing so at the loss of his own life. So, much respect and props to Shad Gaspard. So check that out if you get a chance. if you haven't. Next up, we have, let me see, this is an article off of mirror.co.uk entitled, Married Babysitter Who Had Baby with Boy Who Was 13 is Jailed for 30 Months. Nursery worker Leah Cordes, now 20, had been out drinking for an evening before going into the victim's room. So apparently a married babysitter who had a baby with a 13-year-old schoolboy had showed a total lack of remorse, judge said. The nursery worker had been out drinking for an evening. She went into the boy's room afterwards where he was playing on his Xbox. There she seduced him and became impregnated. She first claimed that nothing had happened, and she claimed that the boy had actually violated her. And upon investigation, they found that she was actually the aggressor in the situation. So you can check that article out. Let me see. Next up, we have one off Atlanta Black Star. This is entitled "Iowa Man's Face Broken in 5 Places After Being Assaulted by a Group of White Men." He said, "I thought it was over for me." Black community in Iowa is on high alert after a man was reportedly jumped by a group of white men. Darquan Jones was walking to his girlfriend's apartment about 3:25 a.m. on Saturday, May 16th, when he was accosted by 3 white men. Jones believes the men were intoxicated. He said, "When I saw they were stumbling, I already knew something wasn't going to go right." He said that the men assaulted him, and at least one of them used racial slurs during the attack. He said he tried to run away, but the men were able to catch up to him before dragging him to a creek and attempting to drown him. So that's something you can look into, again, having to do with how black men are perceived, whether we're engaging in just walking down the street, we're engaging in dialogue, hell, sometimes even just sitting in your home. So again, another report to look into. Now, I want to transition today because as I was saying earlier, I have a guest that I think we're going to have a good time kind of dialoguing. This is a brother who is a prominent attorney in Texas. His name is Dennis Spurling. He's an author and a proud father, among other things. And he's definitely become an outspoken advocate for men, black men in particular, I believe. And we're going to get a chance to kind of find out more about him and his life. I mean, I kind of ran into some of his posts on Facebook and was immediately, drawn to them. I appreciate the work he put out there, and he actually, goes out his way to advise brothers on, different ways to handle situations, ways to understand the world, ways to understand people's behavior, and really, kind of forefronts the importance of manhood and operating in a very upright fashion to that regard. So now, before we bring him in, I want to play 3 different short videos that'll give you a snapshot of different aspects of Mr. Spurling's or Attorney Spurling's personality, and I think they're very informative. So we're going to go ahead and start with the first one pertaining to the bank incident, and we'll go from there.
But we begin tonight with accusations of racial profiling against the Houston Police Department. And good evening, friends. I'm Dave Ward.
And I'm Gina Gaston. A Houston lawyer says he was cuffed and humiliated in his own office building because he is black.
Eyewitness News reporter Jessica Lilly joining us live with an ABC 13 exclusive. Jessica?
Yeah, Dave, when you see the story, you'll understand why Dennis Spurling, who's licensed to carry a gun, says it's lucky he didn't shoot the police officers. He was here withdrawing cash at this ATM when he ended up in handcuffs. Attorney Dennis Spurling is calm by nature.
There's no need to argue with these fellas.
And calm he was Friday night when he became a bank robbery suspect outside his law office.
It was humiliating. I got my cash, my
Spurling,
receipt.
who was with an employee, had just withdrawn cash from the machine outside his Southwest Houston building. As he turned around,
They were like ninjas coming out of the dark.
he says 2 men in dark clothing were telling him to put his hands up.
Now I got my weekend cash stashed. I got my receipt in my other hand.
And on him, a weapon. Spurling is licensed to carry a gun. The men, Houston police officers, took his weapon, put him in handcuffs,
I was sitting right here.
and on the ground. In a lawsuit Spurling filed this week, he alleges civil rights violations, saying he was racially profiled.
The question then is, how did I become a suspect?
And blaming what happened on a lack of training. He names the city, the police chief, and the two officers,
They should announce police officers or HPD.
whom he thinks should have also just asked a few more questions.
My response probably would have been, officer, well, I was just getting some money out of the ATM machine, and that's my name on the wall right there. I'm an attorney and I practice law here.
In response, the city says Spurling and his employee were the only persons at the scene when the officers arrived. There is nothing to indicate he was a victim of racial profiling. Turns out there was no break-in. It was a false alarm, but for Spurling, still damage.
I'm doing this so that my children don't have to deal with this, and so that your children don't have to deal with it.
And Spurling says the officers did give him back his gun and apologized profusely when they sorted everything out. This lawsuit is filed in federal court, and the city says they only learned of it when we asked for a response. Live tonight in Southwest Houston, Jessica Willey, 13 Eyewitness News.
But we begin.
Okay, let's transition on this. Again, this is a whole nother side to the brother. So this is an interesting commercial for his practice.
Injury law, and we'll be more than happy to help you with claims arising from automobile accidents. He doesn't get paid unless you get paid. And as we first wives know, the more our ex-husbands get paid, the more we get paid. So let me help him help you. Call Mr. Spurling at 713-229-0770. Call my dad. Hi, my name.
We're gonna get into that in a minute. And the last of the three is actually a music video with over, 5 million hits on YouTube. Let's check it out.
Dance your life away. It's okay to dance your life away. Dance your life away. It's okay to dance your life away. Our grandmother was some hated. Mi abuela haitiana. La Rubia, you're still a real Dominicana. When I was poor and young, music was all I had. I'm glad I suffered, and thank God I struggled. Now I dance often like we're getting cabaret day. Back on this white wine, help my rhyme line fine. Been a minute since I've been in it, caught my win. Took some losses in the game, the wind still in rain. Shaking about retiring and getting out this thing. Hacienda in the playa, adopting a name. One call is a change, lost in a strange land. Alias assume names and dance with no shame. Dance your life away. It's okay to dance your life away. Dance your life away. It's okay to dance your life away. So I sell your cruise on Netflix, trying to convince La Rubia. Me and Chica Hoven negotiating trips to Cuba. She 22 with piercings and tattoos, hadn't even left the island too. I never been to school, it's like a lose-lose, but all I do is win, 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 no matter what. And that's what's up. Yo te pago universidad and buy a whip. Yo te papi azúcar, mira chica, take that trip. Take notes, loyalty is bought and paid for, folks. Hope she running my empire, I'm trying to load them boats. I know some of y'all players wanna pull my coat. So many layers to this game, I'm still revising quotes. Dance your life away. It's okay to dance your life away. Dance your life away. It's okay to dance your life away.
I'd like to formally welcome attorney Dennis Spurling, entrepreneur, reality show star, author. Welcome to the Onyx Report, brother.
And thank you for having me, Doctor. I appreciate it, man. I'm a great fan of yours, and it's an honor to be on your show.
Oh man, I was checking out the videos, and I said this before we got on. I watched the bank one, and I said, well, this brother's handling his business. He's operating both as an attorney and a father. And then I checked the music video second. I said, all right, this is consistent. Matter of fact, with your book, you have 3 volumes, Kindle edition, of a book you wrote called Rules to Live By, How to Maintain Peace of Mind and happiness in a conflicted world. And when I saw even just your facial expression in the video, you looked like you were doing just that. But then I got to that commercial, and I'm watching this commercial where your ex-wife is basically explaining why people should support your business. And at that point, I was on the floor. I said, I don't think I've run into anybody who's found a way to take an ex-relationship and make it
I mean, we gotta get some money, man. We gotta pay for these kids. You know, like, you don't need to argue. You're getting your child support, help me make some more money so I can get you some more child support. You might be able to go back in there, get a modification, get some more money if I do well. This is for you, girl. This is for you. I'm here to help you.
You might have to do a book just on that, man.
Man.
Negotiate.
Wouldn't easy. My ex-wife from the 9th Ward of New Orleans. It was nothing easy about it, man.
But you got to, I mean, there's something lost, though, and you got to see the video to really capture it. Because the facial expressions and everything, it was just, oh, man, it took me off guard. So I appreciated that. I said, but the range, you know, I really appreciate it in your expression. And I think in many ways, for many black men, you know, much of our lives are conflict. Much of our lives are strife. Much of what we do is against the grain. There's a lot of battling, you know, that goes on, and it can be difficult to find peace. It can be difficult to navigate the world, especially a hostile world, with some levity, with some relaxation. And, you know, it looks like you found a way to balance a lot of that. And not shying away from the difficulties either, because you're suing the police department. Am I right?
Yeah, I sued them, and we ended up settling out of court for an undisclosed amount.
Okay.
But the thing I realized is I sued them the next day. That was the part right there. Like, it happened the day before, and then what happened Friday, and they were sued by Monday. You see what I mean?
Oh, goodness. All right.
Yeah,
all right.
You gotta hit them back hard and fast, not just hard. You see what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, like, you know, the way I like to do on the Onyx Report, when I interview someone again, I like to start from their early life and see how you got to where you were, how you developed the perspectives you developed and the worldview that you've developed in the midst of all that you do. So if we can start from the beginning, where are you from, and what was the context for your upbringing? What did you have to deal with?
I'm from, I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California, in the 1970s, and my first memory was I was on the east side of LA. I was probably about 4 years old, and I saw my uncle being arrested by the LAPD. Okay. And I remember the incident. It was my grandmother had called the police on him because she thought he had brought some drugs in the house. And I watched my uncle, and my uncle's like 6'9", and they brought him outside in his underwear. So, and he calmly talked to the police. They surrounded him, but he basically just talked him out. And, you know, by the time they finished the conversation, they were smiling and laughing. And he had his friends bring his pants and his shirt out because he had negotiated with the police with the handcuffs on, saying, "Man, you know, what are you doing? Why you got me out here for this?" And the thing was, man, and the coldest part about it, and his name we call him Uncle Slim, but the coldest thing about it is he wasn't upset that they arrested him. He was upset that they arrested him for allegedly stealing a TV, which was beneath him as a street hustler.
Okay.
And so those are the type of people I was surrounded by as a young man. You know, dignity and pride, irrespective of the condition or the circumstances. And also, you know, growing up in LA, in the born in the 70s, so obviously I was raised in the 80s, and I actually graduated from Manual Arts High School, which is on Martin Luther King and Vermont Avenue. And any school in a black neighborhood that's on Martin Luther King Boulevard,
right.
you know, lot. If you Google Manual Arts High School, the first thing you find out is that in 1990 there was a shooting on the campus, and they didn't send us home; they sent us to class.
Yep.
Like, okay, it happens. Going back to class. We don't need to bring in any psychologists, or we do not need to clear. It's not a national incident. We don't need ATF. Y'all going back to class. Your classmate got shot. So that was frustration and concern that was paid to us, you know. And for most children, when something like that happens, the schoolmates get shot on campus by a gangster, you know, who hopped the gate to shoot him and then leave. You know, that's national news, but this is something I've been dealing with my whole life. So
yeah,
you know, after leaving manual arts, by hook and crook, man, I managed to get accepted to Grambling State University. At that point, you know, my grades weren't really that great in high school. I'll tell you, I'm proud of the fact that I can tell you that I started with a 2.6 GPA and a 750 on the SAT score. But you guys put it in context. I had helicopters flying over my house every night.
Right.
I had to figure out what color clothes I could and couldn't wear and where I was going to walk every day. So instead of being harassed, set up, shot, you know, by gangbangers, you know, other in the community who claim different sets. Now, I wasn't a gangbanger, and I never will hold myself out like that. But being in LA, you can't escape that taint. In other words, I lived in a neighborhood, and I was one of the people in that neighborhood who had to abide by those rules. And then also I had to associate with those people just because it's necessary.
Right.
They need to know who you are, and you need to respect their rules because you don't want any problems. But again, you know, my family was the one that the gangman was like, leave them alone. You see, because we had a house full of hustlers. Oftentimes, when we moved from the east side of LA to the west side of LA, anybody who understands gang politics understands that we used to live by the Pablos. So my family was associated with a certain group of gang members, but not involved. But then when we moved to the west side of LA, when I say the west side, I'm talking about the west side of the Harbor Freeway, not like other side of La Cienega. I mean, we're still in the hood. But so that created a natural conflict because we moved from one hood to the other. I never really had any serious problems. In fact, a lot of the people in the hood, a lot of the gangsters just adopted me because I was a little homie from the hood. And they knew I was smart, I was tough, I would always get down if I needed to. You know, and you know, I was a product of my environment. You know, I was pretty vicious. You know, just like the other kids, because you had to be. I was vicious. I was violent. Compared to what you would see now, back then I was a pretty good kid. You know, but put me here in one of these schools, you'd be like, this kid has issues. You know, and on top of that, you know, like many other young black men, I grew up with domestic violence in the house. You got gang violence outside the house. I had a whole lot of other issues that I was dealing with related to my paternity, who was my father, who wasn't. And so growing up, man, I had a lot of conflict, both internal and external. You know, it was fist fights, full of combat. I had a whole single mother issue to deal with. You know, I had a whole father situation to deal with, the angry stepmother, man, it just got real. You see what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So, I probably have endured more trauma as a young man than most, you see. Now, I say all that to say, when I got to Grambling, there was no helicopters flying over at night. I had my own room, man. It was probably as big as my office, which is only about maybe 10 feet by 10 feet. But it was my peaceful little sanctuary. And I went from having a 2.6 GPA leaving high school to having a 3.7 GPA my first semester at Grambling.
Right.
And this is in biology. This is not some easy subject. So once I realized that I could do it if I had peace of mind and happiness, I've been fighting every day since that time period to make sure that I maintain peace of mind and happiness. So, you know, and just fast forward, went to law school. Once I graduated from law school, there was no turning back. I studied 16 hours a day for 9 weeks. I mastered the bar examination, got a perfect score on it in Louisiana, first time. And that's been 20 years ago. Now, there's a lot more in between we could talk about. But for the most part, man, you know, I'm a father of 3, divorcee. You know, I manage my relationships with my ex-wife, and then I also have a son. It's Baker, man. That's a whole nother story. Lord, I didn't know it was gonna happen, but it happened, and then she turned from a lady in Jamaica. Turns out she was Miss Jamaica.
Oh
like,
my goodness.
Oh man, yeah, man. You know, you be surprised what happened when you get a little liquor in you, man. So.
Well, let me back up a little bit. So you're at Grambling. What motivated you to go into law? Why law?
Oh man, you know, first of all, you got to understand, coming from South Central Los Angeles, East Side LA, and you know, I've been shuttled back and forth between Houston and Los Angeles, but for the most part, my upbringing was in South Central Los Angeles, and that was like going to Grambling was the first time I've been around that many progressive, positive Black people, and having professors that were Black that actually cared about me, as opposed to professors that were in the school in the hood just trying to get a check. They pay more here. I'm just gonna be here. Right. And then, you know, as a Black male, they didn't really pay much attention to me. They wrote me off. In fact, at my high school, they were shocked that I got accepted to college. Wow. They were shocked because I wasn't that student. I played football. I hung out with gangsters and thugs, and I'm not talking about these pretend thugs that you guys hang out. I'm talking about dudes, Jerry, and then the nickname was Maniac. You see what I mean? Yeah. I was hanging out with the felons, and these were my friends, and they loved me because I had heart. And then they also saw that, I was smart, you know, so they low-key kind of protected me a little bit, and they appreciated me. You know, these are the brothers, these are the men that I grew up with. Yeah. You see, it was my friends that initially made me say, I got to try hard. I don't want to go back to the hood as a failure. And so, you know, my thing was, man, when I got to Grambling, I was 100. I wasn't there to play. I didn't have a girlfriend, didn't want a girlfriend. All I wanted to do was study and not go back to the hood. Remember, it was 1992. I'm fresh out the LA riots. I'm coming out the LA riots. We had 1,000 people get murdered in LA that year. And I had gotten shot at that summer. You know, I got accepted to college, and I'm like, damn, this May, I got accepted to college, but I got to get from May all the way to August. Wow. Summer in LA in 1992. Yeah. I end up getting shot at. I almost sold dope with my homeboy Sugar Bear because I was told I need a little extra money. I backed that and said, man, I can't do this. And I don't want to have this on my conscience that I'm one of the people who helped poison our community. You know, so I backed out of it at last minute, man. You just, as a young Black man, you get put in so many desperate situations. Moving in the hood, you see, and then moving on to Grambling, I was looking back at all that. So, man, I went through school like, no, I'm not going back. It was a traumatic. Home was a traumatic experience. It's anybody who's from LA. When you get off the plane, you feel a certain tightness that comes. Because when I'm driving down the street, I don't see the Hollywood sign. I see where that homeboy got shot. That's where that set is from. Right. That's my cousin bled out on the street after being shot up by some essays from around the corner. That's my other cousin, who bled out in his arms as the police stood around and asked him what set was he claiming. This is where I had my first fight. That's where my uncle used to beat the crap out of his girlfriend right there. So it's some bad memories for me. You see what I mean?
We have a little overlap because in '92 I started college in LA. I grew up in the Bay Area, but I came down to LA, and I actually ended up by about '98 I was teaching at Centennial High School. So he said, "Ooh."
I don't even go on the east side.
My very first day they were taking the teacher out of the classroom into the hospital because he got stabbed. So
You look close to Compton. You got to be careful, man. Be careful, man. Long story short, man. I don't want to dwell on the past, but my career is intact. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's why I'm such an advocate for Black men, because I know what you have to go through, brother. And even now, you know, I'm far removed from it, but I purposely placed myself in a position so that I can hear my brothers, my younger brothers, my older brothers. And then here's the crazy thing, man. Then when you grow up and you get out of the hood, you don't get a reward for that. You don't get a merit badge saying, hey, he's special. You get an opportunity to deal with the regular life problems that everybody else has to deal with. You see what I mean?
Yeah. Well, listen. So you went into law because of some of the inspiration you had at Grambling, and because of the lifestyle you led, the experiences you had. You did well, clearly. You passed the bar. What then?
Well, just to back up a little bit, I majored in biology. I had a professor there named Dr. Benny Miles. I didn't have a filter when I was in high school, in college. I just said what I wanted to say. If I saw something wrong, I said. The ladies, they wanted me to be quiet and cool like the other black men. But I'm like, please, I'm not pleased. I'm gonna tell you what I think. Okay, I'm here on borrowed time. And he said, you know what? You're a good B student. You're a solid B student. He said, but they want A students to be doctors. Maybe you should go to law school. And I said, hey man, he said it with so much love and tact. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, you're right. He said, he's like, Southern University has a law school. It's right there in Baton Rouge. I'm like, yeah, all right, didn't feel bad at all. And I'm like, I'm gonna enroll. So I enrolled at Southern. I got accepted. I'm like, okay, I'm in Louisiana. I can go to the Bayou Classic for another 3 years.
Okay.
When I got to Southern, man, it was a beautiful thing. I had lots of friends. It was a different kind of vibe, man. I love Southern University. I love Grambling, but man, Southern was a little bit more cosmopolitan. So, and of course, it's professional school, and I just fit right in. And man, from there, man, I moved forward. What ended up happening was, they were, and I'm gonna tell, because then after that, I went to Tulane. And if you know anything about Tulane, that's an Ivy League university, and y'all probably, how did he get his black ass in Tulane? That's what some of my law school professors, how did you get your black ass in Tulane? They wouldn't even expect. But and this is fresh out of law school. That doesn't happen. You don't just get accepted. But this plant next door was burning some chemicals. I was the president of the Environmental Law Society. Of course, I majored in biology, so that kind of fit in. And I ended up advocating on behalf of the students at Southern University, and protesting them burning this napalm era gasoline in the campus next door. And I made such a big stink about it. It was all over the news. I testified in front of Congress. Those good white folks down at Tulane said, yeah, he's the type of Negro we need here.
Oh, wow. Okay. And I just want to say real quick, I'm real glad you pointed that dimension out of the work you did outside of the classroom that ended up complementing your education and your career choice, because when I work with students, I'm always trying to tell them this doesn't have to detract from your studies. If you navigate this right, you can advocate, particularly for black folk, and it could end up becoming part of what you do. So it doesn't have to be separated from that. So I appreciate that you brought that dimension in, but please continue.
No, well, I was afraid, because I'm like, man, you ain't gonna never get a job around here. And these white folks, you in Louisiana, they got Confederate flags around here and whatnot. But for the most part, man, I spoke my mind. I was bold. At that time, I'd been well made aware of Dr. Martin Luther King and Thurgood Marshall and how they spoke up. You see what I mean? The thing about it is, man, when you deal with that type of trauma, growing up like I did, the domestic violence, the violence in the hood, fear is not really the same to you as it is anymore. You embrace death at that point. And so when I talk to these young brothers, I tell them, look, man, you've been more at 10 years old than some of these Iraqi war veterans. You shouldn't pray. You're accustomed to it. So fear nothing. Don't fear death. Don't fear anything. And so when people say, hey, man, how do you say those things you say? It's because, you only live once. And what you should be concerned about at a certain point is the well-being of your children and your legacy. And the other thing you don't want to be concerned about is having any regrets. So you talked about the law practice, you talked about the TV shows, the books, you talked about the music, of which I have 6 albums. My friend would say, nephew, you got to come in 10 toes down, put all your hustle hand in. You see what I'm saying? Okay. Do everything that you feel you should do. Don't have any regrets in life. Don't be an 80-year-old man saying, I wish I had done this. While you can. And as long as you're alive, you can do it. That's kind of like my philosophy, man. And with that, stress is a part of life. Conflict is a part of life. The only time conflict ends is death. Okay. You see what I mean? And so something that you have to learn to deal with, man. Every day I'm in court. Every day I probably have about 300 open cases right now.
Wow.
And, you know, and I have it's amazing. God has blessed me, you know, and my people have blessed me. And, you know, I take care of black people and black people take care of me. And I even tell them when they're wrong, you know, like over the I use my Facebook platform to point out the issues that a lot of brothers are having with the sisters, and the sisters like, you black women, you don't like us. And I'm like, man, my ex-wife is from the Ninth Ward of New Orleans, from Jamaica. And the fact that I got a baby mama should tell you that I probably don't like black, I probably like them a little too much. You know what I'm saying? and so, you know, so that's, but I have to do that, man, because we have a toxic culture right now, and it's killing us, you know, and it's causing our sons to be raised and emasculated, and to be raised with so much anger they want to take it out on each other. We have so many issues, man. I'm just going on, but I would take
no. That's exactly what I want, you know, people to know about. Now, so how did you decide to or go about setting up a practice, and then, you know, how did you get into this work with black men in particular? How did that happen?
Okay, well, basically, man, I graduated from Tulane. It was a 2-year program. I got out of there in 1 year because I was like, I'm not paying y'all this much tuition. So I took every class they offered the first semester, every class they offered the second semester.
Yep.
And so, you know, the thing is, once you get that Ivy League degree, you get that stamp of white approval.
Wow.
Okay. And then they like, yeah, they took it. So I ended up getting a job as a law clerk. But before that, and this is crucial, and I want y'all to listen to this, right? I have a degree. This is me, right? I'm 27 years old. I got a bachelor's degree from Grambling. I got a JD from Southern, a perfect score on a bar examination. I'm a licensed attorney, and an LLM from Tulane in environmental and energy-related law. In October of that year, before I had applied at this place called Labor Ready in New Orleans because I just wanted a job. The other thing you guys don't know about is at Grambling State University, while other kids were going to school in class, I was working at the Fayrock Student Union Center painting that building. Working, making $6 an hour because my parents had cut me off. My mom was contribute a little bit of money, but for the most part, I was working. I worked 3 years from 1995 all the way to 94 to 97. I worked doing construction on campus. So while other kids were playing and hanging out, I'm coming out, I smell like paint. I'm going to class. I'm dusty, I'm dirty. You see what I mean? They would send me across town to Louisiana Tech. I'll be over there 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm working, and then have to go to class. When I graduated from Grambling, I didn't work my first semester at Southern Law School, but my second semester, I got 2 jobs. I worked at the airport, and I worked as a graduate assistant. You see, I was told my mama, don't send me no more money. I'm good, I'm a grown man, I can handle myself. She cried, and she appreciated that. You know, but that's the type of man I am. Now, when I got to Tulane, I didn't have a job, I starved. So I had to apply for a labor ready job, because even though with all these degrees, I'm trying to eat. You see what I mean? I'm humble. I'm always a humble man. This is the thing that I want you to understand. This is what I want you other brothers to get. I'm never too big to work for what I want. You see what I mean? And I got that from my grandma. But bottom line is, man, I graduated from Tulane. These people called me up there. They were looking for a secretary to work at this law firm, this personal injury law firm in New Orleans, white folks, you know? And they said, look, you know, you definitely qualify, but the only position we have is working as a secretary for $10 an hour. And I said, I'll take it. With all degrees, a perfect score on the bar examination, $160,000 in school loans to pay back. My first job in the legal career was being as a legal secretary, getting paid $10 an hour, sitting in the hallway. I did a good job for those white folks. I helped them resolve a $500,000 case in about 2 or 3 months that I was there. They hired me back once my law clerkship was over. I did my time with them for 3 years, and I probably would have still been there, maybe. But Hurricane Katrina hit, I lost my house, I lost everything, and then I moved back over here to Houston.
Wow. And
it was basically because of a force of nature that I was forced to start my own. But I had all the skills that I need because I've been watching. I'm familiar with that whole theory, the spook that sat by the door. So I've been watching how the white folks do. I didn't interfere with their business. I was just watching everything they did. I absorbed everything they did like a sponge, from their bank accounts you need, how you deal with the clients, the secretarial staff, everything. And then I took it and I moved on. And the thing you have to understand about the personal injury business, it's a money business. And you don't have many black attorneys that do that because they don't win. You can practice family law. You can go on over there and practice criminal law. You can go over there and what else do we do? We wills and testaments. Go, help your mama get her will set up. But this business, they don't let you in. Now, I've been at it for 20 years, and over the past 2 years, 3 years, I'm actually since 2017, I've gotten involved in environmental class action litigation. So maybe in 3 or 4 years, man, I might be worth, a lot more than I am now. So put it out there, but my ex-wife is looking. Let me
so you're gonna be losing my old train of thought.
So you're telling us that the legal profession is as segregated as many others in terms of where black attorneys, what they can practice, how well they're received. There's designated areas is what you sound like you're saying.
Saying you locked out of it. Most black attorneys don't have the money to litigate these cases. And if they have the money, they may not have the business savvy, or they might not have the knowledge. When I was working at that law firm, they gave me the worst of the worst cases. But see, we're in New Orleans, so they need at least one black attorney to go stand in front of all those black judges. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
I'm really good at that. And by the way, I love black female judges. They love me too.
My goodness.
Man, I got a $3 million judgment in front of a black female judge once. So I think they make the best judges because they don't take any crap. You see what I mean? Unfortunately, some of our brothers can be swayed a little bit. I hate to say that, but some of the brothers need a little bit more backbone, in my opinion. You see what I'm saying?
Some of the male judges?
Yeah, the black brothers, they try to play they're a little too egalitarian. You see? Okay. I'm not talking about all the brothers, but those sisters, when those sisters become judges, when you get a good one up there who will stand her ground, you can pretty much tell what's going to happen. You can tell based on the case what's going to happen.
Okay.
So, but either way, man, I started from the bottom up, man. My first law job was a legal secretary, and I took that because I knew that's what my grandmother would have done. She was from Mississippi, man, and she's probably the one that instilled that work ethic in me, man. So I'm rambling.
No, you're not. That's precisely what I want us to know about. But tell me now, the work with men, how did that start? What form did it take, and what did you do?
All right, man. So it's 2012. I've been practicing law on my own for 7 years. I don't have anybody looking over my shoulder, white folks wondering what I'm doing with the money and stuff. Like, I'm practicing on my own, I'm freshly divorced. I'm hanging out with my homeboy. Oh, it's a wonderful time. You know what I mean? Divorce parties every week. You know what I mean? And and my homeboy, man, we were college roommates, man. And by the way, I have 2 children at the time, so I'm a father, and some things have started to change, and I'm started getting a little bit more serious, and like, oh my God, these 2 little black boys I gotta raise. And then my homeboy, I hooked up with him from college. You know what I mean? My college room, we like brothers. I mean, he's from California, I'm from California. I mean, we were hanging, man. Him and his little crew came about 2 years after I got there, and we just hit it off. And we ended up being roommates, started like brothers, man. This is like brotherhood that you don't get. You know what I mean? It's my brother. And it's 2012, so it's what, 10 years after we graduated or so. And we partying again. Now we in our 30s. We having a good time. We partying, hanging out. He got murdered in Atlanta.
Wow.
And that was 2012. And that really made me realize that I can't escape. It made me realize that I was not through losing friends, because I lost several friends back in the 80s and the 90s.
Right.
Gunshots, murdered by other black men. But I thought I was through. I thought I was through with that part. I thought I had done my rites of passage, and then my best friend got taken from me by a simple robbery. That took like $100 or something like that.
Right.
A 23-year-old boy and a 24-year-old boy. So them 2, they going to prison forever, and he's dead. I had to go to that funeral. You know, I had to watch his mom, who I love, and his family, who I love, his dad. And these some Afrocentric people. This is not a gangbang situation. You know, this is my brother, you know, that, and man, that hurt me hard, man. And it made me realize that if I don't do something about this, then something's gonna happen. You know, something could happen to me and my sons and other people that I love. And then in 2014, I got arrested by the damn police. They pulled up behind me. They had their guns drawn, and this was right after that Eric Garner situation.
Oh, wow.
That was November of 2020. That was November of 2014. You see? So now you got all this going together, plus my sons are getting older. We got all these black men getting killed. Trayvon Martin has happened. And I'm realizing that there is nobody that's going to do anything about this. Nobody cares about the plight of black men. So I set up on that, okay? Then I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to move. So I'm moving to the Dominican Republic, basically. I would be down there. I rented a house, 2016. And I enjoyed myself. I had a beautiful girlfriend that I met. She was sweet to me. But mine was always back up here because I'm like, my sons are there.
Okay.
And my friends are there. And so I just start blogging on my Facebook page about the things that I think brothers should think about in this life. Because I don't think there was nobody there to teach me these things. There was nobody there who had gotten to where I wanted to be, to reach back and tell me, you know what, brother, this is what you need to do. You need to think about this. This is how you need to conduct yourself when you're with the police. This is how you need to deal with women to make sure you don't get caught up in a situation. This is how you need the priorities you should have for right now at this age. And it just morphed into something else, man. And now, you know, my Facebook page and my books and pretty much my public image is kind of taking over. It has its character and its own life.
Well, let's back up though. I want to find out what led to the books and how that came about. But the other piece I want you to add to this is, you know, you do a lot of your videos where your sons are present. You know what I mean? And you talk a lot about, you know, fatherhood and how to navigate that. But you're also an advocate of just showing your sons love right there. And I think that's incredibly important because I talk about that a lot. You know, in terms of the importance of that, because many of the stereotypes against black men is that, you know, we don't have any emotions, we don't care for our kids, and, you know, you're openly engaging them while having them hit the weights, you know, or you know what I mean, or dialoguing with them about life. So if you could talk a little bit about how the books came about and, you know, your approach to fathering.
Well, okay, the easiest question, which is difficult, is why did I start writing these books? You know, and why am I so unhappy? You know, and how did I just have everything that they said I was supposed to have, and I'm not happy, and I don't have. It's 2010. I'm fresh out of my marriage. I have gotten everything in the marriage that the women usually get, plus custody than most men ever get. I won. I'm sitting in the house that I bought. I got all the cars. I got the money. I got to keep everything in my bank accounts, 401ks. I get to see my kids pretty much whenever I want. But I am broken down, crying, upset, and hurt because I don't understand why I haven't found peace of mind and happiness. And I look back and I said, I need to figure this out. So I start writing my story. And I started writing the story of the people that came before me because they raised me, you know. And what I didn't realize at that time when I started, and what I realized when I began writing, is I inherited that trauma from those black ancestors of mine who raised me. Okay. That stuff that they had to deal with back in them plantations, that stuff that they dealt with in their house, that dysfunction, they passed that down to me, like COVID virus or something like that. And I had to be careful that I didn't pass it down to my children. So I figure out what it was, how did that happen? You know, so I began to write my story from that first memory with my Uncle Slim all the way up to the point where I finally accepted the truth about something that I hadn't accepted about my life. And that was, I didn't know who my real father was. And I'm named after a man who's not my father. And I didn't find out who my real father was until 2012. You see what I mean? And that's me, my whole life. You see? That caused issues, and there are a lot of young black men out there like that. And then the fact that your mother lied to you and then told you the truth, and then your father lied to you and then told you the truth once she found your real father, and it creates a lot of mistrust.
Sure.
And it creates a lot of internal conflict. You see? So along with the physical conflict of growing up in the hood and dealing with domestic violence, I had that internal conflict, which led to a spiritual conflict. So even though I had all the material wealth, I had the degrees, I had everything they said you were supposed to have, I wasn't happy. And that's why my testament to you all is that just because that money and that success and all that, it's fun. You can have a lot of parties. You may love a lot of beautiful women if you're a dude. You know what I mean? I guess if you're a woman too, you know, but it's not going to give you peace of mind and happiness. The only thing that will give you peace of mind and happiness is walking in truth and have peace of mind and happiness doing what God wants you to do. You see what I mean?
And see, that's interesting to hear, because one would think finding out that everything you'd been told your whole life, you know, was not true. You would think that finding that out would traumatize you more, but you're saying it actually helped to lead you to some stability.
Well, at 10 years old, when I was exposed to that truth, I didn't want to hear about it. But by the time I got, how was it, 38, 39, the man that I was named after, we had so many issues because the man knew I wasn't his son. I'm 5, 6 inches taller than him. And then I grew up in the household with him, and I'm sure his wife knew, so she was a mean stepmother, and her family kind of knew, and it just was problems, you know. And then I was out there I basically grew up in a house full of strangers. You see what I mean? And it was a bad situation. And then, but the thing is, my option was to return back to South Central LA and possibly get shot.
Okay.
So it was either you're gonna deal with this mental and emotional abuse, or you're gonna go to the hood and deal with this domestic or this outside criminal activity. You see what I mean? I chose criminal activity because I'd rather be able to shut my door and keep it outside and deal with somewhere where I'm being traumatized every day. You see what I mean? Sure. Now, go ahead. What was your next question, bro?
Well, I was gonna say, how did you take? So you that was the impetus for the book, for the book series, right?
And I didn't know the end of the story when I started writing it, but I basically wrote myself into finding my father. You see what I mean? It's a trick I have, and that's why I just put it in God. That's why the last rule in the book is, in volume 3, is there is a God. You see what I mean? And when you find your path to peace of mind and happiness, you are on God's path. You will receive all the gifts that God has to give you. When you walk down that piece, if you somewhere you're not supposed to be, you're on the wrong path. The stuff that you pick up ain't for you. That woman, that house, that car, that job, that's not yours. That belongs to somebody else. You didn't go down the path that you were supposed to go down because you're lying to yourself. You want to be a doctor. You wanted to be a damn poet. Okay? It didn't that you weren't making $500,000 a year. You're doing this because your mom and your daddy told you had to do it, and now you're not happy. You're over there snorting cocaine, getting drunk, operating on people while you're inebriated. You're thinking about committing suicide. That is not your path. Right. Saying, brother?
Wow, and everybody else is seeing the car, the house, and all the clothes, and they can't understand why you're not happy.
Why are you not happy? Because material things don't give you peace of mind and happiness. Now, fast forward to my children. I am the father to my children that I didn't have.
Yes, sir.
I am everything to my sons that I wish I had as a father. A both fair, respectful, loving father who makes me strong and disciplines me, but also gives me physical attention, like with a hug and and validation. I'm proud of you, and support. See, all that right there. I love you, son. Love is nothing. It's an adjective. Say you love somebody, but you don't do anything showing that you love them. You love that person. You just talking. So we got a lot of fathers and moms too, unfortunately. You talk the talk, but you don't walk the walk, and kids see that. Kids will grow up and give you your grade. And if then you have to judge yourself. Like, okay, you got a C+, well, you know, you average. You get an A++ on mine. You see what I'm saying? Well, my son, I constantly talk to him, look, man, this is what you're going to deal with, man. You're a black man, so you're going to have a lot of women trying to talk to you. You're going to be handsome. Let's watch the weight. Let's watch what we eat. You get good grades. This is what happens if you go to this university. This is what happens if you go to this university. I talk to them all the time, man, because I don't want them to have any internal conflict.
Yes,
like,
sir.
Not the stuff that I had to deal with. I need to know that Father loves them. I need to know them that I will be there for them as long as I have breath in my body, but I'm not going to spoil them. They're going to have to fight their own fights. Like I said, I grew up in LA. Man, you're from Northern California. You know what that looked like?
Yes, sir.
And yeah, in the crack epidemic, that's where it started. As a matter of
sir. Yes, sir.
You got kids growing up, their mama's on crack. They come to school with an attitude. You know what I mean? You gotta box them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And, the thing I realized, man, I can love and cater my children and be sweet to them and all this stuff and raise them up right, and somebody else's kid can come take them out this world.
Yes, sir.
So I recognized it was incumbent upon me not just to try to save myself, but also to save these other little black boys and these other black men and help them rid themselves of their conflict and help them find peace of mind and happiness and tell them that, you know what, man, that dream that they telling you that you need a Bentley and a big booty girlfriend and a big house or a condo and a 6-figure job, that ain't gonna make you happy, homeboy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, I'm proud of you get it. I'm proud of you get that MBA from that school, but that might not make you happy. That's gonna allow you to make some money and it's gonna allow you to give some time to sit back and reflect, but that's not necessarily gonna make you happy. It's not gonna put you where you need to be. And the other thing, and here's something I want all of y'all to listen to, no matter how many degrees you have, you can't bury that monster that was raising you from all that trauma under those degrees.
Yes, sir.
It's going to dig its way out of there, and it's going to pop up at the wrong time, either in domestic violence, you're going to abuse drugs, you're going to do you're going to cause yourself self-inflicting pain. You're going to do stuff to hurt yourself. That's how your mind talks. Been there. You know what I mean? Me and my friend, man, I had 12 shots of tequila inside of an hour in Miami Beach at the is it the Oceanair? I forget what it's called. But that was alcohol abuse. I was still
dealing with the pain.
Yeah, man. But after I got better, man, I lost 100 pounds. I found my real dad. I lost 100 pounds. Things are happening, you know, and I can ramble on about that. I really am uncomfortable talking about myself.
Well, you see, the framework, and we're actually about to close out, but I want to thank you because what I try to do when I interview people, I want, especially young brothers, to know what that road looked like. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, especially when you talked about having all the trappings of success and not being happy, that's something that we don't know, and it's that much more traumatizing when you burn the bridges, that you burn the candle at both sides to get to that goal, and it's not, you know, and you end up, you know, for a lot of people feeling like, well, there's nothing left, you know, what do I do? And so I think it's important that we have these kind of dialogues, but I also think it's important that we understand how brothers who have found success in whatever way they found it, how they've gone about it. Because I think if you're aware, especially as a young man, of what those different things look like, the more options you have. So we have about a minute. Is there any closing thought you want to leave the audience with?
I'm saying this, brother. If I can do it, you can do it. You know, if I can overcome all that I overcame, you can overcome anything in your way. I don't care if you were beaten, abused, sexually abused, if you don't know who your father is, your mother was a bad mom. It doesn't matter. You are here because God wanted you to be here. My mother tried to abort me while she was pregnant with me, took some pills, tried to get rid of me. I am God's child, and you are God's child. You have a destiny on this plane that God wants you to fulfill. And that's the only parent you need to be concerned about. And if you have wonderful parents, God bless you. And I love my parents. I appreciate everything they did for me. But I recognize they're just human beings. Right. And you let go of that anger, let go of that hate. Do what I do. Make music, travel around the world, enjoy your life, hug your children, tell people you love them as often as you can. That's what I do, man. That's my philosophy on life. And all I'm doing with my brothers, man, I just want my brothers to live and have peace. We as black men have been through enough in this country. We have been the mules, the beasts of burden in this country for almost 400 years now. And you're free now, brother. You're free to live your life, go where you want to go, travel where you want to travel, meet the women you want to live, do what you want to do. You're free, brother. You don't have to be bound by other people's limitations that they impose on you anymore.
Absolutely. And I want to thank attorney, author, activist, Dennis Spurling for coming on the show, especially last minute. We just connected at the last minute. It was real organic, and I really appreciate it. Y'all know how I like to close out. I'm here to tell you, brothers, that we are not criminals by birth, perennial rapists, incapable intellects, man-children, sperm donors, child support wellsprings, success objects, walking phalluses, ATM machines, lottery tickets, unpaid body. I am here to tell you, brothers, we are not criminals by birth, perennial rapists, incapable intellects, man-children, sperm donors, child support wellsprings, success objects, walking phalluses, ATM machines, lottery tickets, unpaid bodyguards, interchangeable stepfathers, child discipline proxies, unpaid repairmen, workhorses, or any other socially accepted dehumanizing stereotype. We are thinkers, inventors, innovators, leaders, fathers, and men. Embrace your humanity, know your worth, and extend your time, attention, and resources only to those who genuinely respect you. And remember, your worth is not defined by meeting other people's narcissistic, selfish, and